All right. I'm going to really quickly introduce this capacious panel, and then we'll dive right into the conversation. Starting on the right is Rick Moody, the author of many novels, short stories, and a great collection of music essays called On Celestial Music. Next to him is Sam Lipsyte, the author of The Ass, The Fun Parts, and some other stuff. Sarah Marcus, author of Girls to the Front. Here we have the real star of the evening, Jill Sobule. David Haydu, author of The 10-Cent Plague and many, many other things. Ina Mehta, prize-winning financial journalist. And what everybody on this group has in common is that we all were sucked into the vortex of the DOTTIE'S CHARMS project, which goes back nearly 4 years now, incredibly. And I think just to begin, I'm going to ask both Jill and David Haydu, who are really present at the creation, to say a few words about how the whole project came about before we get to the experiences of the particular lyricists. So,
David, I'd like you to start, because I'm going to ask my friend Andrew has the charm bracelet.
oh, okay. Here it is.
Well, I had the privilege to meet Jill at first when I was doing a story for the New York Times magazine about women and homosexuality in folk music, based on the premise that folk music had become to gay women what show tunes were to gay men. That was the full extent of my pitch that got me this assignment.
We love it.
And I did a piece, and there was a big brouhaha about it. And Jill, I interviewed Jill for that, and she had been asked, "What do you think of this David Haydu guy?" I said, I like that story. So I like people who like me, and we became friendly, and then I wrote more about it, and we started hanging out, and blah blah blah.
Yeah, and we went out for drinks a few times, and of course I had this. I don't know who had the harebrained idea. I don't know who had it first about collaborating with writers, with some of my favorite authors, and it was just a passing thing. You had an idea.
I had an idea that I was knocking around ideas of what can we do. And at first we were talking about maybe we do something together, but I didn't think I had it in me to do a whole album or something. So we're talking about, well, let's get some other writers in who are equally qualified to write songs as me, meaning people who have never written a song before. And so we made sort of a list. The other idea I had was I thought, well, let's buy a yearbook, a high school yearbook from eBay, and pass it around to some writers and have them imagine scenes and construct a time and place through their imagination from the evidence of this yearbook. And then Jill, we stopped on the street literally, and Jill said, well, wait a minute.
Well, I had a friend of mine. Is Mary Kate here? No, she's a friend of mine bought me, I don't know where she got it, an old vintage charm bracelet. And for a couple of years, I just threw it in the drawer of, you don't want to throw away stuff because they're gifts, because that's not a nice thing to do. So I forgot about it, and then I took it out, and slowly I started looking at it more and more and becoming a little more obsessed by who owned this. And like I said last time, it was why was this on sale? What shitty grandchild put this on eBay? And I started looking at the charms. We know her name is, Dorothy. There's a charm that says Dorothy, but we call her Dottie. She played piano, probably, because there's a piano charm. She was probably a working woman, because there's a American Businesswomen's Association charm, a swivel chair. So she was probably a secretary, I'm thinking. She traveled to places not that fancy, like Kentucky, Mackinac Island, and then I started wondering more and more and imagining in my head who this woman was, and so we thought this was maybe the perfect idea to give a different charm to one of these authors, for them to contribute to Dottie's story.
And from that point, it was really embarrassingly easy. I'd like to say that it's a Herculean effort, but people's admiration and affection for Jill is such that all we essentially need to do is tell people the idea and say you're one in, and writers do jump at it. In part because of your affection and admiration for Jill, and in part because for a writer of nonfiction or literary nonfiction to have a chance to write a song, I've said this before, it's like giving like a mall cop of a squad car. It's too good to be. It's like, so Rick Moody, we had met before tonight. So I emailed Rick Moody and told him about this idea. Do you want to do this? Yeah. And that was the response we got for the most part. I'm going to stop now, but I do have some charming stories about some of the other responses we got if there's time later. Yeah.
Well, so I mean, what happened after this is that I think David had the charm bracelet, and he sent each of the participants a photo of their charm. And it's important to stress that most of the participants had no contact with each other while this process was going on, and yet what is very strange is that a remarkably consistent composite portrait of this woman emerged. The other thing is that any of the participants who had any musical ability, even of a fairly modest kind, Jill encouraged them to send a musical demo. I mean, even though she would ultimately be doing the music, she was nice enough to encourage that. Now,
And I ultimately discarded your idea.
yes, you threw mine right out the window. And that was a very smart idea. Interestingly, now, did you do one, Sarah? Did you do a musical demo?
I did.
And I mean, what? So, I mean,
So that
what was your
started-
inspirational process, I guess?
I love writing songs, and I have a very hard time being in bands. I have been in a great many bands, and none of them have lasted very long. So it was wonderful to have an opportunity to write a song and not have to keep a band together in order to have that song live in the world. It was fabulous. As far as, I guess, David, you sent me a couple of charms, either photographs or just a list of what was left, and the Canadian kind of called out to me right away. And I thought about that line, that Joni Mitchell, "Oh Canada," and I thought, what if that was the first line of the song? And David had told me that they wanted something rocking, but I'm a pianist, so the rockingest thing I can come up with is not extremely rocking. But I sort of wrote if any of you know the music of Judy Sill, just kind of like a loping piano, gospel-tinged thing. "Oh Canada, you took me in just beneath your native skin to a land we both belonged to years ago." The whole song came out of me in like 5 seconds on the subway. It was, I never really had like one line give rise to the whole song like that. And so the words had a rhythm, obviously, and then Jill wrote a new.
Now I feel bad.
The oysterizer.
No, it was what, it's like the part of the spaceship that comes off once the spaceship is launched. That's what that tune was.
Booster.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I have like 900 demos from this project at home. It was for a box set with like 40 CDs
I
in
like
it.
to change things.
And, but I mean, I didn't think I heard every musical demo, but I actually know that Rick's demo contributed much more to the ultimate
Yes.
song than many of them did, and particularly because yours was just a voice demo, there were no instruments on it, right?
Correct. Yeah.
The melody's there.
Yeah. I mean, I can't really write lyrics unless I have an idea of what the melody might be. So that's the idea. That I had to have a little bit of melody in order to scan properly and so on. So, but I did that, what I normally do, which is sing a melody so that I can have a meter. And then I didn't tell Jill what the melody was, I just sent the lyrics in. And then there was an interval, this is my recollection, maybe yours is otherwise, but
3 years.
yeah, then there was a decade passed. No, and then I got I think I got a voicemail message from you that said, "Do you have a melody?" And so I had the number, so I just called back and I sang da 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 da.
Was that the phone message?
Yeah, it was a phone message. Yeah, because because I had to have the melody to write the lyrics. So.
right,
But
right.
that was the extent of it in my case. Because I can, as I was telling Jill earlier, if I pick up the guitar, I just do the same shit every time. Like, 1, 4, 5. You know, so it's going to be a much more interesting melody if I don't have the guitar. Yeah, exactly. So.
And it didn't hurt that we had Fred Hirsch play piano. on
Well,
this.
indeed.
That was nice.
Sam, even though you were the badass frontman of Dung Beetle long ago, you did not, in fact, make a demo, but I guess I was curious to ask you, and actually ask some of the other participants, do you feel that writing lyrics exercises a fundamentally different sort of muscle as a writer, or is it not so different in a way from writing prose, or neither?
Well, it was interesting. I didn't do a demo, and one of the challenges was that when I was in a band, I was screaming, and there was just deafening roar behind me, and part of it was that you couldn't really hear what I was saying, and I liked it that way. So the idea that now I would have to write lyrics that would be audible.
New frontier.
It was a new frontier for me. And I was really, I was one of the people just excited about doing this with Jill and excited about the challenge of writing lyrics. And there weren't that too many charms left when I got to it. So I think there was, the stirrup and the toilet bowl. There's no toilet bowl. So I was definitely, okay, it's going to be the stirrup. And then I started thinking, that made me think of country-ish stuff, and so I kind of had a good frame. I wasn't like thinking, oh, this song could be anything. That's what was one of the things that was so great about these charms, that they really could create a frame for you to work within and think about all the music you've loved and so forth, and the lyrics you've loved. And so, yeah, it's a very different challenge. It's not like writing fiction for the most part. And it's not quite like writing poetry either, because it's a different thing. It's meant to be sung. And
It's still poetry.
what?
It's still poetry.
Oh, it's still poetry, but it's like reading some Bob Dylan lyrics on the page. They don't quite have the same power that they do when they're coming out. And I think there are great song lyrics that are better than a lot of poetry, but I find that they're slightly different. So I just started to write the song that everybody comes up to me now and says, "Oh, your song's so funny, so comic," and I'm like, yeah, but and actually, it was coming from a very feeling place for me when I was writing it, but now it seems to be.
No, I think it's really tragic.
Yeah, good.
No, and you know what? It's called I Hate Horses. And the thing that I related to it, I hate horses, is I grew up in Colorado, and there were two groups of people that were the horse club, and then the stoners. I was the stoners. But the girl part, so it was like I hate horses. So I mean, somehow I got right into it. It took me back to 8th grade.
Well, also, I recently Googled the phrase, "I hate horses," and came up with lots of documents where people have written about how they hate horses and why they hate horses. And it's very strange.
I'd like to ask a question. I mean, it might be something more than one of us could answer, but I was going to ask you because you haven't spoken yet. To what extent did you feel sort of proprietary about the lyrics once you handed them in, or did you accept some sort of inevitability that they would be wrenched away from your own conception of them, or what was that feeling like?
Well, I suppose I wasn't proprietary about the lyrics at all, but I was afraid that, if anything, Jill would wrench the entire song away from me and say, no, this is not what I was expecting from them, this is a song. And give the toilet bowl cleaner to instead. So no, but unlike some of the other people who wrote lyrics, I was not imagining Dottie to the same extent they were, I think. What I wrote was just very personal. I wrote about the death of my mother, and since we were all essentially fantasizing about this person that none of us knew, I thought, well, she could just as easily have these experiences that I've had. So I wrote about something that was personal. So it was really very fascinating to turn it in and then want to come back musically animated by Jill in this incredibly moving, powerful way. So it was very exciting for me. And also, I'll just add that unlike everyone else on the panel, I don't have any musical experience. So when I sat down to write lyrics, I'm like, what is a bridge? How long? How many lines is the chorus? And how many of these little narrative sections can I have? It's like a chapter book. Is 5 too many? So I mean, I was far more angry. And also, it's like, how long can Jill sing without breathing? That was Jill's problem.
Jill never saw the 32-verse version of the song, but Jill, let me turn that question on its head. So, how did you? I mean, in other words, you're a fantastic lyricist. You've written lyrics for almost, I gather, for all the songs in your own career. So, how weird was it for you to receive these offerings, and how freely did you feel you should tamper with them, and what was that experience like?
Well, on one hand, there was a lot of freedom because they weren't my lyrics, so if people thought if they sucked, it's not my fault. No, but they did suck. That was the great thing. But there was a certain freedom to just. I was telling Rick earlier. Is to figure out. Here's a lyric, and they were all really good to figure out how to make it into a song, what kind of soundtrack it would be. It was like a puzzle. So there was something really. We were talking about, you know, sometimes you get bored doing the same thing over and over. This was something that was interesting and wondrous to try to figure out how to add and not distract from the lyric, basically. And I mean, there were some people, like Sam, your lyric, for instance, pretty much had, you know, meter was there, and had a chorus, verses, and there wasn't much in messing around. There was a couple people, and I don't know where I just had to take out a the or syllables here and there to make them in. And there were songs, I think, in Canada where we just, for the chorus, just repeated things. So it was chorusy.
And I mean, there's a lot of musical stylistic disparity on the record. I'd say like there's a kind of a folky underlay to some of the songs, but I mean, for my song, there's a very sort of grand Burt Bacharach thing. For Sarah's song, it ended up being kind of psychedelic in the end. And do you stylistically, did those things just flow out of this sense of lyrics, or did you find yourself kind of drifting from one stylistic base to another? Or?
I think first it was the lyrics, like for instance, he did the swivel chair. And you know what? Where did I put the... Yeah, we were hoping if you guys want to take a... Yeah, there we go.
No, it's insured by Lloyd's of London. So insured and return.
So James picked the swivel chair, and it was a kind of a Mad Men era. You felt like, she was a...
Yeah.
So I thought, I want to feel it, and there was a little bit of Burt Bacharach. I might have had a little bit of Petula Clark coming in there. For instance, your ABWA was the union badge, and I thought, I was thinking Billy Bragg or something, just because it had to have that. With yours, I was like, I'm not quite sure musically what to do with this. And I liked what you did, but I thought maybe I could do something maybe better. Even though yours was great, but that's the way I feel. No, it was really good. I'll tell you the truth. I'll tell you the truth is that I had just bought an upright bass, and it was great. And I was talking to Rick earlier. Sometimes when you go to the same instrument you can play forever, it is boring. You still go to the same stuff. And I was like going bing, 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 and I had your lyrics in my mind, and so I think it was. I just picked up this strange foreign instrument and that's what came out of me. And and yours was wonderful too. We're going to put it on the B-side. But so there was the one where it was just it was accidentally from just
Out of an instrument.
out of an instrument. And Rick's, of course, used his idea of the melody, and then I don't play piano. At first I did it with banjo, remember?
Yeah.
Which I kind of liked, but I thought, no, we'll do piano rather than banjo.
Since it's about it, yeah.
Yes. And with yours, I just felt it just needed to be minor key. It's about a mezuzah.
Jews are such cheerful people.
Yes.
Could you just say a little bit, Jill? I mean, since this project just kept ramifying more and more and more, of course, you then collaborated with some other musicians, both in composing the songs and obviously playing them. And so, I mean, what was that like then explaining to another set of people, oh, here's this kooky thing?
Yeah, on a couple of my work with a guy, Mike Viola, and here's this idea, would you help me? And they didn't quite understand the concept, but we had a good time writing it. No, now they're like, wow, now I understand. But they were, I don't think they were there with the concept of as much as I was. But I also want to say, you were saying, before I forget, is that, how you guys want to write songs. Well, I think what you all do freaks me out. I mean, it seems impossible that you could write something more than 20 pages. And so I was nervous that you guys wouldn't like what I play. Even if I disregarded ideas. I was really nervous.
No, I mean, I should just say briefly that, again, faced with the opportunity to make a demo, I ran and did this 2 guitars and bass and drums overdone. It was kind of a clomping, like Neil Young meets Elmer Fudd kind of thing. And Jill and I had went to Skype, and I sent her my demo, and, she very gently said, well, I have another idea. And we actually got off Skype, and then I would say like 15 minutes later, she sent me a demo just with guitar that I think was recorded on your iPad. And I mean, that was about 85% of the way to the finished song. And I mean, I was astounded at the way she seemed to just pull that out of the air. And so, I mean, I think what you don't do always seems weirdly miraculous when someone else does it with such kind of bizarre ease. But
and for me, like, I put so much time into lyric writing, but this was such a joy. It's like I could spend more time watching TV and have you guys do it. It was great.
But did this really fire you up to start writing lyrics again? Or you're like, okay, I got that out of my hair.
No,
Or
I
just
want to.
TV.
There's more charms. There's more charms to be written.
So there was a point about 2 years ago, about a third of the way through the project, and you said, I don't think I want to write any more music to other people's plays. Yeah, I don't think I want to do this.
I was in a shitty mood.
But I think that what that meant was you were, I'm not sure what the hell that meant, but you have such high standards that you wouldn't let it go until it reached a certain point. And I think we've all seen it with several instances.
Help from you though, because you were the nudge. If it wouldn't have been from you, I wouldn't have finished it. I know that.
Royal
It's
nudge.
true. And you too.
Well, here's the thing. Oh, well, first of all, what time is it? Here's what I'm going to suggest. Why don't we, if there's interest, take questions from the audience for 5 or 10 minutes, and then we'll take a short break. We bozos will get off the stage, and then Jill